Welcome back. So at this point, what we should have is we should have our units changed to architectural units, and we should have a very basic knowledge of how to enter our commands. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually start to draw right now. The toolbar, okay, the tool buttons up above have, basically the majority of the tools that we're going to need. Okay, you really shouldn't have to go outside, and beyond this for now. To begin with, we're going to start with the draw commands, okay? And you'll see that there's a line, a polyline, a circle, and an arc. Now, you should start to play with these and try to get familiar with what commands do what. But to begin with, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start with the line command. And what I'm going to do is, again, type in line and hit enter. So, as I said before, it's always good, I think, as a beginner to kind of keep one eye on the command line down here. If your dynamic input is on, you can keep one eye on that. Because what AutoCAD is going to do is it's going to ask you what it needs in terms of input. So, to begin with, once you enter the command, okay, after entering the command, you'll notice that the crosshair changes in appearance from being a cross with a square at the center, and now it is only a cross. So that's one indicator of how you know that you're in a command. Now this is a general behavior that always happens when you're in a draw command. Still pausing at this moment and looking at the command window, you'll see that it displays the following message. So it's saying command line specify first point. So this line tells you that in the line command and that you're in the line command and that AutoCAD is waiting for an entry from you. So in this case, it's asking you to insert or specify that first point for the line command. And we do this by left-clicking, okay, at any location within the model space. Okay, pausing here again, notice that there's a rubber banding that's going on that is anchored from the first point that you're specified. So now what it's looking for is it's asking you to specify a next point. So we specify a second point in the same manner as we did with the first one by left-clicking at any location within the model space. Now you'll see that the anchor of the rubber banding line is where you indicated that second point. Continue doing this for a few more clicks. Okay, and then in order to escape out of the command, you hit the escape key, and what that does is it brings you back to 0. So you'll notice that your cursor goes back to having that square in the middle, and you'll notice that there's no input being asked for, and that your command line is asking you to type a command. So that's how you know that you're actually out of the command and AutoCAD is waiting for a new command. So this is a very, very, very typical process of the command structure in AutoCAD. It's also the language, okay, quote-unquote language that AutoCAD will speak with all commands. So you notice that AutoCAD doesn't really like to, it doesn't really like to mix things up a bit, okay? It likes to stay with a very structured way of doing things, and that, again, is very helpful for you when you start to work with it, in that you can start to anticipate what it's going to ask for next, and it'll tell you what it needs in order to finish the command. And then again, when you want to get out of any command at any time, okay, all you have to do is hit escape, and that'll get you out of that. So, this language and the structure is in a way of, starting to work with new commands, and it'll come more quickly because you'll start to get used to this way of inputting information into AutoCAD. Now we'll repeat this exercise using the polyline, okay, and the rectangle and the circle. So what I did is I held down my scroll button on my mouse in order to get my pan hand, and I'm just going to move it down a little bit, and I'm going to click on my polyline, and it's going to ask me the same thing. So specify my start point, and I'm just going to keep clicking until I hit escape. Okay, so I just zoomed out a little bit just by scrolling down, okay, and holding down my pan in order to move that space over so that I can make more space for a circle and a rectangle. So I'm going to click on the circle, and if you notice with the tools, there are some that actually have a little black arrow that are pointing down, and that means that there's more options to that tool. So for example, with circle, if I expand that, you'll see that you can specify the center and the radius. the center and the diameter. You can also do 2 points, 3 points. And if you know, if you remember your geometry from high school, I do not as much, you can still specify a tan radius or a tan, depending on if you know that information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the center and the radius, okay? And literally I'm just going to specify center point and then just bring it out, okay? And not specify any distance just yet. So that's the gist of the circle command. And then the rectangle is up at the top, okay? And you can either type in REC or RECTANG, okay? Again, you'll notice when I mouse over there, at the bottom of that window, it shows you the rectangle, okay? And that's the command for rectangle. So rectangle, what I can do is I can just type in the command, okay, specify first corner and another corner. And we'll see another way of entering dimensions into the rectangle as we go through and start to specify specific types of dimensions. Okay. Now, before we begin and we start to draw, okay, we might find that we draw a line and AutoCAD is not allowing us to zoom in and out as much as we want. Okay. So you'll see that when I pan over, okay, my pan hand changes to have this line and an arrow on it on one edge and a line and an arrow on it on another. Okay. It's not allowing me to go beyond a certain area. Okay. And you'll find this when you start to draw and you can't see your whole drawing, okay? And that's because what AutoCAD has done is it essentially puts a limit on the drawing space, okay, in order to limit the amount of information. Now, yes, theoretically you are drawing with infinite space, but AutoCAD, it also imposes drawing limits on each file and will limit the viewing area for your drawing in model space. So you can set up the limits by using, there's a limits command, okay, that you can use in order to set up those limits. But honestly, the way that I use it is I just zoom to the extents, okay, of the model space. And what that does is it zooms to the extents of the objects. And what that does is I find that it just tends to break those limits anyways. So if you find that you're drawing something and you can't see the edge of it at the end of it, and you find that, even if you pan, okay, and you're going as far as you can, you still can't see the end of it, okay? If you double click that scroll button on your mouse, okay, what that does is that zooms to the extents of all of your objects. Now mine are all within that limit, but if yours are outside of that limit and you double click and you zoom to the extents, okay, what it does is it essentially breaks those limits. Another unorthodox method that I do is I'll draw a line at a very large distance and then do a zoom to the extents. It essentially does the same thing, but in terms of this, what I would do is just zoom to the extents. That should work for now. If you have to do it twice, that's not uncommon, but if you have to do it 3 times, that's pretty uncommon, okay? So you should only have to do it once or twice, and then after that, you should be fine from there. The zoom tool, okay, with the zoom command, you'll find that I can type in Z for zoom, okay, and I hit enter. And then what it's asking me for is to specify a corner of a window. So basically by default, what AutoCAD wants is it wants to create a window for the zoom, okay, and that's essentially creating one corner, and you can bring your mouse down and specify the other corner and it'll zoom to that window, okay? But if I type in Z for zoom again and hit enter, you'll see that in my command line there are actually more options for the zoom command than there are maybe for the other commands that we've seen thus far. After the zoom command, okay, you'll see that these are actually sub-options within the zoom command. So we can either zoom all, we can zoom center, we can zoom dynamic, we can zoom extents, so on and so forth. Within the command, what we can do is we could actually click on that sub-option, okay, which didn't used to be an option that we could do earlier on, okay? We never with earlier versions of AutoCAD, it never allowed us to actually click on that sub option. But what it would have us do is that you'll notice that every first letter, okay, is capital and it's in blue. Basically what that means, and it's not to be grammatically correct or, sentence-wise correct, but basically what it's saying is that capital letter, no matter what it is, and 99.9% of the time it's going to be that first letter, but you'll find that, for example, with more complex commands, that capital letter might be in the middle of the word, okay, of that sub option. But basically what it's saying is that whatever that capital letter is, that's the letter that you hit in order to activate that sub option. So for example, if I want to zoom to the extents, I'm going to type in E for extents, and it doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase. Okay, all it's saying is that hit E and hit enter, and that should zoom to the extents. Now, it's already zoomed to the extents. Okay, so it didn't do anything, but if I do it again, Z, enter, okay, and E, enter for extents, it's going to zoom into the extents of my objects.